The global geopolitical environment is undergoing profound realignment. As the United States engages in multiple theaters, from Eastern Europe to the Middle East, it opens both risks and opportunities for its primary long-term competitor, China. Yet, the view from Beijing is not one of unchecked optimism. Instead, it is a recognition that the world's complexity demands caution, strategic patience, and calculated investment in resilience. The ongoing war in Ukraine exemplifies this duality. The United States, alongside its European allies, has committed vast military and financial resources to Kyiv. This has undoubtedly divided Washington's focus, reducing its bandwidth to confront China directly. However, the ripple effects have not all benefited Beijing. Far from fracturing, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization has grown stronger. Nations such as Finland and Sweden have joined its ranks, and European defense budgets are expanding at a pace unseen in decades. European governments, once economically intertwined with China, are now reconsidering that engagement. China's neutral or occasionally sympathetic posture toward Russia's invasion has raised concerns in European capitals. As a result, a number of European leaders have begun calling for strategies to reduce dependency on Beijing. From energy diversification to reshoring critical industries, the continent is taking deliberate steps to prepare for a more unpredictable global order. In Washington, strategic planners increasingly discuss China not as one among many challenges, but as the principal long-term competitor. Should Russia's military power diminish significantly as a result of the conflict in Ukraine, the United States would be free to shift more of its diplomatic and military attention toward the Indo-Pacific. From Beijing's perspective, the defeat or weakening of Russia would not only eliminate a valuable strategic partner but also leave China more isolated on the world stage. China's assessment of global dynamics, therefore, must account for more than just American distractions. It must also consider the cost of an increasingly cohesive Western alliance, one that may eventually be directed toward containing China's rise. This awareness is shaping Beijing's geopolitical posture, assertive where necessary but restrained where prudent. In the Middle East, another region of enduring volatility, China sees both caution and opportunity. The assumption that American influence in the region is weakening may be premature. Though the United States is no longer eager to remake the region as it once attempted, it maintains a significant military presence, with tens of thousands of troops and key strategic assets still deployed. Its commitment to regional partners such as Israel remains strong, and its capacity to deter escalation remains credible. Major regional powers, Saudi Arabia and Iran in particular, are playing their own complex games. Riyadh continues to hedge, seeking advanced weapons and favorable oil prices from Washington while also signaling openness to economic ties with Beijing. Tehran walks a tightrope between its nuclear ambitions and economic survival, seeking to avoid direct conflict even while testing boundaries. Both nations are unlikely to fully align with China, preferring to keep their options open. Recent clashes between Israel and Iranian-backed groups illustrate this balancing act. Iranian missile strikes on Israeli military assets and limited attacks on U.S. facilities in the Gulf were carefully calibrated. They demonstrated capability without triggering a broader conflict. Intelligence suggests both sides communicated in advance to prevent unintended escalation, further highlighting the preference for symbolic retaliation over uncontrolled warfare. Despite narratives suggesting otherwise, China has not filled the vacuum left by a more restrained American presence. Beijing's interest in the Middle East is largely economic, securing stable energy supplies and maintaining access to trade routes. While it encourages regional stability, it does so without committing military assets or aligning closely with any single actor. In this theater, China plays a peripheral but watchful role, using diplomacy and commerce rather than force. In contrast, the Indo-Pacific remains Beijing's primary concern. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea continue to simmer. Although both China and the United States emphasize the need to avoid direct confrontation, neither side has stepped back. Instead, both have bolstered military readiness and reinforced regional alliances. Washington's strategy is increasingly centered on deterrence through partnership. The quadrilateral security dialogue, comprising the United States, Japan, India, and Australia, has gained momentum. Meanwhile, agreements like AUKUS aim to deepen technological and naval cooperation between the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. These efforts reflect a broader goal: to build a collective security architecture capable of discouraging unilateral moves in the region. Japan, at Washington's urging, has increased defense spending and revised its security doctrine. South Korea has reaffirmed its commitment to alliance cooperation. The Philippines has re-engaged with U.S. security frameworks. Together, these steps represent an evolving Indo-Pacific network designed to complicate Beijing's calculus in the event of a crisis. Beijing's response has been steady and deliberate. Rather than engaging in open provocation, China has used sustained pressure to test the limits of regional norms. Fighter jets cross the Taiwan Strait median line with increasing frequency. Naval patrols near contested reefs are a near-daily occurrence. These actions send clear signals. China is not retreating, nor is it accepting the status quo. Yet, Beijing remains acutely aware of the risks. A war in the Taiwan Strait would likely involve the United States and its allies, triggering severe economic, financial, and military consequences. Unlike a conflict with a weaker neighbor, a clash involving major powers would be devastating on both sides. Chinese strategists understand this and have calibrated their actions accordingly. Even in its dealings with smaller regional actors such as the Philippines, China has taken care to avoid escalation. Coast Guard patrols and water cannon incidents in the South China Sea are dramatic but carefully staged. Beijing seeks to assert its claims while avoiding legal triggers that could invoke mutual defense treaties between Washington and Manila. China's handling of North Korea follows a similar pattern. Pyongyang's provocations are tolerated to an extent, but Beijing does not want chaos on the Korean peninsula. A nuclear crisis would threaten China's northeastern border, disrupt trade, and send destabilizing signals to the global economy. Thus, Beijing continues to maintain diplomatic and economic channels with North Korea while discouraging recklessness. Behind all of these tactical decisions lies a broader strategic vision. China's leadership is focused on building national resilience. This includes technological self-sufficiency, particularly in semiconductors, artificial intelligence and aerospace, energy security through long-term contracts and domestic production, and a more diversified global supply chain for food and raw materials. Defense modernization continues at pace. New naval technologies, missile systems, and aircraft carriers are not intended for immediate use but for long-term strategic credibility. The message is clear: China does not seek war, but it is preparing for any eventuality. It aims to deter, not provoke, to delay, not rush. Beijing's confidence is rooted not in short-term advantage but in long-term preparation. It understands that global power transitions are marathons, not sprints. As the United States grapples with overlapping crises in Ukraine and the Middle East, China views the present as a window of opportunity, a chance to strengthen internally while the world remains distracted. In this contest of endurance, Beijing is betting that time, if used wisely, will tilt the global balance in its favor. But it is equally aware that time can also run out. Thus, the coming years may be less about confrontation and more about consolidation. What emerges from this period will depend not just on strength, but on discipline.